Today, we're diving into something that sits at the very core of our justice system, the whole idea of checks and balances. We're going to explore what happens when that system, which is supposed to guarantee a fair fight, starts to break down. And we're going to zoom in on one place in particular, Queens, New York, where a pattern of behavior is raising some really serious questions.
So let's just cut right to the chase with a question that honestly is pretty terrifying. When you are at your absolute most vulnerable, can you be sure the one person you are supposed to trust, your defense lawyer, is actually truly fighting for you?
I mean, really try to picture it. You're the one on trial. Your entire life, your freedom, it all hangs in the balance. And you've put all of your faith into the hands of your lawyer. They're your only shield, the only person whose job it is to defend you, no matter what. And then boom, the rug gets pulled out from under you. Just days before your trial, you find out your lawyer is about to start a new job as a senior prosecutor in the same office that's trying to put you behind bars. You'd have to wonder, right? Were they holding back, trying to make a good impression on their future bosses? This isn't just some movie plot. It's a real conflict that poisons the entire idea of a fair trial. To really get why that scenario is so chilling, we've got to back up and look at the blueprint for our entire justice system. It's all built on this one fundamental idea, the separation of powers. Yeah, James Madison did not pull any punches. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly important. To protect people's freedom, you can't let the same group be the police, the prosecutor, and the judge. It's like in sports, the ref can't also be the coach for the other team. Each part of the system is supposed to keep the others in check. Now, of course, there's a big debate about how rigid this separation needs to be. On one side, you have what are called formalists. They say these lines have to be super clear and bright. You blur them, you risk tyranny. On the other side are the functionalists. They argue that, a little bit of overlap can actually make the system run more smoothly and efficiently. And it's right in the middle of this tug of war that things can start to go really wrong. So, what happens when this separation of powers just dissolves? Let's move away from the theory and look at what's been happening on the Queen's District Attorney's Office, which, for many, has become a poster child for what happens when these powers start to look a little too cozy. Now listen to this. This isn't a critic or a defense lawyer saying this. This is a judge from a higher court speaking directly to a Queen's prosecutor. The court itself was basically saying, "We know it's you guys," without even seeing your name on the brief. That's how well-known, how distinct their pattern of behavior had become. And that reputation wasn't built on just one or two mistakes. We're talking about a documented pattern. Courts have called them out for interrogation tactics that basically steamrolled a suspect's rights, for having information walls that conveniently kept prosecutors from turning over evidence that could have helped the defendant, and for getting slapped down again and again by higher courts for improper arguments. It got so bad that a civil lawsuit was able to list 117 separate court decisions that called out their misconduct. And just so we're all on the same page, when we say prosecutorial misconduct, we're not necessarily talking about a prosecutor being an evil person. It's any action that breaks the rules and violates a defendant's right to due process. It could be hiding evidence, making crazy arguments to the jury, or being racist in jury selection. The key thing is it's about the act itself, not whether they meant to do it. And this right here, this shows you the core of the problem. It's a complete failure of accountability. In the real case of a prosecutor named Therese Landino, a federal court literally found she used deceptive misrepresentation. So what happened to her? Was she disciplined? Reprimanded? Nope. She got promoted. And then promoted again to bureau chief, where she was in charge of training new lawyers. The message that sends is just chilling. Misconduct doesn't get you fired, it gets you a promotion. And if you're thinking, well, that's just a problem in Queens, think again. A nationwide study looked at more than 3,600 cases where courts identified prosecutorial misconduct. And the number of prosecutors who faced any kind of public discipline for it? Less than 2%. The system that's supposed to police itself just isn't. So, what is the ultimate consequence of all this unchecked power? Well, you end up with a system that can feel a lot less like a search for the truth and a lot more like a machine built for coercion. And you can see that pressure right here. A mind-blowing 95% of all criminal cases in the U.S. never see a trial. They end in plea bargains. The whole system is basically designed around people giving up their constitutional right to a trial. See, the system is supposed to be a fair fight. Prosecutors can bluff by throwing a ton of charges at someone, banking on them being too scared to fight. And the defense lawyer? They're supposed to be the one who can look at the prosecutor's hand and call the bluff. But what happens when that defense lawyer is compromised? What if they're thinking about their next job? That critical check on the prosecutor's power, it just vanishes. So you can see the impossible choice this creates for a defendant. You can take a plea deal, or you can roll the dice on a trial where it feels like the whole game is rigged against you. When the prosecutor is threatening you with a massive sentence if you lose, and you don't even trust your own lawyer to fight for you, taking that plea deal, even if you're innocent, can start to feel like the only rational move. And the cost of this system failing isn't just theoretical. The National Registry of Exonerations found that in more than half, 54% of all known wrongful convictions, official misconduct was a contributing factor. This isn't just about procedure. It's about innocent people having their lives destroyed by a broken system. But the story doesn't just end there, because in the face of all these failures, people are starting to push back and fight for real accountability. You've got law professors and legal experts who are tired of just writing articles about the problem. They're now taking direct action, filing formal public ethics complaints against prosecutors that courts have already called out for misconduct. They're trying to force the system's own watchdogs to finally wake up and do their job. And there are some really clear, concrete solutions on the table. Things like creating an independent commission to investigate prosecutors, one that isn't controlled by the DAs themselves. Or having judges issue automatic orders at the start of every single case, forcing prosecutors to turn over all their evidence. And maybe the most obvious one, simply demanding transparency and ending this insane culture of rewarding misconduct with promotions. This quote really just says it all, doesn't it? Our whole system was built to prevent any one person from having too much power. When a prosecutor acts with the power of a judge, they become a king. And that is exactly what the Constitution was written to stop. Which leaves us with this one final, really unsettling question. Our system is supposed to have safeguards, watchdogs, checks and balances. But when all of those fail, who's left to watch the watchdogs? Who guards the guardians?